how it started, why it started, and how you got from there to where you are now.
Yeah, Angie, thank you for that. It's so true. And thanks for covering those kind of stories on your show too, because I think when we just see the headline of everything looks easy, it looks like, oh, maybe they have what it takes to succeed, but I'm not getting traction, or I keep getting rejected, or, and part of why I wrote Believe It, my book, is because I kept getting messages from women online constantly saying, like, did you just get lucky, or was it easy? And then they feel alone in their own struggles or alone in their own setbacks. And so I feel like when we share the stories behind the stories, it's how we all realize, like, oh, it's possible for me to, go from not believing in myself to believing in myself, or not trusting myself to trusting myself. And that's really what my story is all about. I started It Cosmetics in my living room, and as we're talking now, right now, at this moment, it's the largest makeup company in the country, largest luxury makeup company, which is wild. But, what's so important to share is that it almost didn't happen, and it almost didn't make it a million times. And my real journey was, from the point I finally launched it in my living room, it was 3 years of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's from all of the beauty retailers and department stores. I used to always put on a pedestal, and I loved shopping in their stores. And I thought, oh, I'm going to launch my idea into the world, and they're just going to love it like I do. And that is not what happened. It was literally everyone saying, change this, change that. We don't think this is going to work. We don't think customers will buy makeup from people that are real. Like, we think, change that. And it was just no after no after no after no. Some of them even said, you're not the right fit for us or our customers. And today we're a top selling brand in all their stores, but 3 years of them saying no. And not just no for now, but like no forever. And just how do we not let rejection talk ourselves out of our dreams is really the journey. That's really the journey. Because anyone facing rejection right now, the most important thing is they know they're not alone. And it's just part of every journey, really.
And I love how you talk about that. And you talk about how rejection is protection. You said that, and you have a very personal story that's behind that, right?
Yes, I think this is so true. And I think that in particular for women, it's so important that we start embracing rejection. I think self-doubt kills more dreams than almost anything out there. And I think so many people probably listening to us, like at this moment, so many people know they have a dream on their heart, or they know they have something more to give or offer the world, or create, or an idea they want to launch, or something they want to do, but they end up letting self-doubt take over because they're scared of failure or of rejection. And, my hope and prayer, and a big part of why I wrote Believe It, is I hope to shift perspective around rejection. I hope, even though it's painful, even though it's not fun, I think when we can really embrace it and not take it personal and see it as part of our journey, because what I have learned, and I do believe to be true, is rejection is God's protection. Some people say rejection is the universe's protection. And, I have so many stories of rejection in my book, but one that stands out in particular, I think you might be referencing, is, we were a couple years into building It Cosmetics. We got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was my personal and business bank account. I didn't know how we were going to stay alive in business. And I had been just getting hundreds of rejections from all the stores. Well, we finally got this inbound phone call from a potential investor. And I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, because this was a big private equity company who had invested in all these products you and I buy at the grocery store. They made them household names. And I thought, wow. And they loved our product at Cosmetics. So I thought, if they invest in us, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they can use their leverage to try and get us yeses from all of these retailer stores that keep telling me no. So I thought this was going to be life-changing. And we started doing meetings with the potential investor and their whole teams. And it got down to the final meeting. And I thought it was going to change my life. I was so excited. And I'll never forget, I flew in for this final meeting. My husband was there as well. And the head guy was about 3 feet from me in person. And his whole teams were there. And they said to me, congratulations, we love your product. You should be so proud of everything you're doing with It Cosmetics. But it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in your company. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I'm so used to hearing no, right? This was like a couple of years of hundreds of no's. So I said, well, can you tell me why? Like, can you share with me why? Because feedback is a gift, usually. And he paused for a long time and he said, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he's standing about 3 feet from me. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember in that moment, a couple of things, right? I got, first of all, a lifetime of self doubt and body doubt. Like I felt it flood my body all at once. So I wasn't even mad at him. I felt when he was saying these words to me, it almost felt like I was staring my own fears straight in the eye and just trying to keep my faith bigger than them. But I'll never forget there was this moment, Angie, where when he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling deep down in my gut, like just a strong feeling of intuition that said he's wrong. Like he's wrong. And I felt it. And, listen, after that rejection, I went and cried. I cried in my car, all those things. But here's the thing is so many times, all of us, no matter who we are, somebody looks us in the eye and in one way or another says to us, you're not enough, or you're not the right fit, or change who you are, to get my love or to fit in or to get in my stores or to get my investment, whatever it is. And those are the moments that change our lives, because we have those decisions to make of, do I trust my gut and stick with my authentic mission, or continue showing up authentically as who I am? Or do I try to change who I am for someone else's approval? And so after that investor said those words that were really hurtful to me, although I appreciate his honesty from his perspective, 6 years later, I hadn't heard from him. 6 years later, when we were acquired by L'Oreal, it was the largest acquisition in their history. And because of that, and L'Oreal is a public company, it was on the homepages everywhere. So the Wall Street Journal homepage was like, It Cosmetics sold for $1.2 billion cash, and this whole thing. 6 years later, when that happened, I heard from that investor. I heard from him, and it was the first time in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And two things I learned, like, had he invested, it would have been the most successful investment in this firm's history. But also, rejection is God's protection, right? Rejection is the universe's protection. What's amazing is, had he believed in me 6 years earlier, right, instead of rejecting me, I had no money. I was so desperate at the time, I probably would have given him the majority of the company for almost no money, right? But because he rejected me, he didn't believe in me. By the time we did sell the company, I was the largest shareholder. And so it was like, rejection is protection, even when it doesn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah, $1.2 billion and still the CEO. I mean, come on. That is such an amazing story. And when we talk about your book, Believe It, I think what I love is that you share a lot of these mistakes or these life lessons. You do a lot of reflection. And one thing you mentioned was that, hey, I wish I knew right off the bat that when you are presenting a new idea, which is essentially what you were doing at the time, to change the way we viewed the beauty industry, to use real people. Imagine that, people that look like you and me, that have real skin conditions. But the fact that you were so shocked that they couldn't see it in your eyes, but when it's never been done before, and that's where a lot of people, I feel like, they're pounding their heads against the wall saying, look, why can't you see it how I see it? Like, this is the future. I work in news. I remember getting, called into the office because I started talking about Twitter on the air and saying, hey, follow me on Twitter, because I was doing traffic at the time and it was in real time and it was fast. And I got called in, and the boss said, don't promote other websites on our air. You need to send them to our news site. And I kept saying, no, but this is different. And it was just this constant fight. When you see something that others don't, it can be really defeating too, as you mentioned. And you talk about that, and also being able to choose to turn that volume up or to turn it down.
Yes. what you just shared is so, so important. If I had learned, and here's the thing is, um, you know, when I wrote this book, it's not just about like, how did I build at cosmetics? It's really a book for every woman, every person who wants to overcome self-doubt and learn how, right? And the lesson that you just shared that I think is so important, is, anytime we're doing anything that's new or novel or hasn't been done before, what I've realized and learned time and time again now, and wish I learned earlier. And by the way, it could be launching of a company, but it could also be showing up on social media in a certain way. It could be putting our art or our blog or our book out into the world. It could be anything that we're doing. And what I learned is that most experts, even the most touted visionaries, they have the hardest time imagining something being successful unless it's already been done before, unless there's subconscious proof in the back of their mind that tells them, oh, yes, this has been done before and it succeeded. Therefore, I think this will work. Anybody in your community listening to this, anyone listening, watching us right now, when you show up authentically, which is the only way to have real connection, real human connection, right? With another person, with your online community, with your customers. When you show up authentically as a person or as a brand, it's by definition never been done before. It's by definition new or novel. So don't be surprised when so many of the experts who are awesome and mean so well, or when friends and family around you who are often awesome and mean so well, don't be surprised or your partner, don't be surprised when they can't imagine it succeeding. And that lesson is huge because sometimes we hear other people's discouragement and it's easy to internalize it and start doubting ourselves or start doubting our idea or start doubting our talent or doubting our gift. You almost have to get really good at cheering for yourself when you're someone who is going to go after a dream or is going to pursue a goal or is going to put your heart out into the world. Because what I've learned, and now I know so many people that share this in common too, is like most people, even though they mean well, they typically only cheer for you after you've made it.
Yes.
Like, right? They cheer for you after you got the show or after your company is doing well or after people are buying your book. But in the process, they're like, are you sure? Are you qualified? Why are all the stuff, right? And so the other lesson, I talk about this a lot and believe it, that you'd mentioned, is about the idea of volume. And here's the thing. A lot of us have people in our family. It could be our parents, our partner, our friends that have been childhood friends. So we don't want to be like, peace out, but they're still in our lives. But when we realize every time we share an idea or a dream with them, we start to, their own self-doubt starts to like project onto us and we start to talk ourselves out of it, or lower our own vibration. And so, one of the tools I talk about in Believe It in the book is just this idea of learning to really control your own microphone, right? You're in news,
Yes.
so you know this so well, but it's like, if you imagine, like every one of us, right? My friend Bob Goff taught me this. I don't think any relation to Angie Goff.
No, but I love him to death too.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Before our interview, I'm like, oh, I'm excited. This is going to be another Goff I love so much.
I think we follow each other on Twitter, and I have his books.
Just like you, he's like this light in the world that's just amazing. And I was in a conversation with Bob Goff, just a small group of people, and he was talking about this idea of the microphone. I started practicing it in my life, and it was so life-changing that I asked his blessing to be able to write about it in my book. So I wanted to share it with everyone on how to do this. But what he said, because this started with someone who was talking about like that she loves her parents, but anytime she talks about her hopes and dreams, like she feels so judged and she starts to just like doubt herself. And what do you do in that case when you don't want to be like, peace out, mom, I'm out of here, but you want to love the people around you, but you also want to become who you are and all of who you are, right? And his advice was so good. I literally wrote like half a chapter about how to do this. Was he said, imagine we all have our own microphone that we're holding. We decide, just like a television news reporter, when you see them on the streets and they hand their microphone to someone, they typically never let go of that microphone, or that eyewitness takes the mic and runs, right? It goes on for hours. You hold on your mic and then you decide when to take it back. And he said, in life, imagine that we all have our own microphone and we decide who we hand it to and on what topics, right? So his solution that I thought was so brilliant, I talk a lot about how to do this, is, when, maybe when we realize, we start to do an audit of who's around us, who is our circle of friends, who's our circle of colleagues, who do we go to the gym with? And we start to just pay attention. Oh, when I talk to this person about this, I instantly feel like, so I start doubting myself, or I instantly then don't feel like I have what it takes. Or so what you do is you take the microphone back from them on those topics, meaning, you talk to, maybe it's your mom or your partner, right? A lot of us don't have a circle around us in our own homes or in our lives where they understand our hopes and dreams. So, for a lot of us, what we have to learn to do is talk to them about the weather, about what's on tonight on, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what's on Fox 5 tonight? What's for dinner? What's on the, whatever, who got picked on The Bachelor, whatever it is. And you still have those relationships, but then you take your microphone back from them on things like, I'm writing a book and I'm going to share my story with the world, or I'm going to, start a big social platform, or whatever it is, or I want to go run a marathon. And we find people in our lives that we're able to share that connection with. And maybe they're people we've met online. Maybe it's a mentor from afar. For me, it was Oprah for years, long before I'd met her. When I would watch her, I felt my own vibration rise. I felt like, oh, where I come from doesn't determine where I'm going. And so for me, even though I hadn't met her yet, it was someone I wanted to hand my imaginary microphone to. And so I talk about how we can do that in our lives. And I think it's so important because if we don't learn to do that, I think it prevents us from ever becoming all of who we are.
Oh, absolutely. So in a sense, I mean, we just have to become better audio operators, right? Decide when to tune people in and tune them out. I just love the story about QVC, your first time going on QVC. And because this is the ultimate story of following your heart and following your gut and doing and staying true to yourself. I feel like that's thrown around all the time. Stay true to yourself. Every time I ask someone, what's your best advice? Stay true to yourself. But this exemplifies, this is textbook, stay true to yourself. I would love for you to share that story.
Yeah, I think that we all kind of know or believe these things like, oh, I need to be true to myself, right? But then when it comes to real life and how we show up and how we decide what to do when everything's on the line, that's when it gets really tough to not just like know our values or know what we believe in, but then to actually live them. And I talk a lot in the book about how while authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success, inauthenticity guarantees failure. And I saw that now play out over a decade in the tens of thousands of entrepreneurs I've had the blessing of meeting, and very few ever make it. I think it's how Oprah has made it. Nobody was ever like her or is ever like her. And to reveal all the parts that normally people would hide, that's how we create connection. That's our superpower. And I after 3 years of hearing no from everyone. I mean, I, Angie, and every ounce of my being, I kept feeling in my gut like, okay, I created this great product with It Cosmetics. It works for me, and I have hereditary rosacea. Nothing else would work. And I just kept feeling in my gut like I need to not just launch this product, but also show on real women, every age, size, skin challenge, skin tone, like show real people using this and show how it works. And I kept having this vision. When I launched the company, it was even before YouTube was doing this. So no one was doing this. All we saw was these ads on television and commercials where it was usually somebody with the same skin tone. They always were like the same age and flawless skin. And you never saw anybody with, that looked like you and like me. You know what I mean? You just never did. And so I had this vision, oh my gosh, if I can create a product that works and like try to shift culture however I possibly can in the beauty industry of how they define beauty. Like that was my deep mission, right? For because growing up when I'd see those ads, I always loved them. I always aspired to look like that, but deep down inside, right? They always made me feel not enough in this weird way. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I can create a company whose mission is so much bigger than me, and I could try to shift culture in the beauty industry and how they define beauty, and change those images for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every adult who still does. And so this big vision. And then all of a sudden, for 3 years, everyone's telling me it's not going to work. Everyone's saying no. And when a retailer says no to you, what they're saying is, I don't think that we can make money from you, is what they're saying. We don't believe in what you're doing, or that it will sell, or that it will work. And so 3 years of that goes on, including, years of hearing no from QVC. And it's a crazy, wild story I share in the book of how we eventually got a yes to get one shot on QVC. Now, QVC is a live television channel broadcast to 100 million homes. And when you go live, you have this big sales goal each minute that you're live. And if you're not hitting your sales goal, they pull you off, right? And anyhow, after years of rejection, I got one shot, one yes, big yes, to get one chance live on QVC to sell our concealer. And we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely in business. And I learned, Angie, that I would need to hit their sales goal in the 10-minute window, I would need to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer. And I also learned the deal was going to be consignment, meaning I had to figure out how to make all the product, pay for it, ship it in, and then get my one big shot on air for 10 minutes. And if it didn't sell, it would all come back to me, which means we'd be out of business. So it was a big risk, and we applied for an SBA loan because we had no money. We had literally no money left. We were down to well under $1,000. So we got 22 banks said no, and the 23rd bank said yes, just to fund the inventory for that one order, for QVC, for that one chance in 10 minutes. So basically everything was on the line. I flew out to QVC a week before the airing, and I sat in their parking lot in this rental car all alone. And I just stared at the front of the building, knowing the next time I walked in there, my whole life was going to change, or I would be bankrupt. And here's where the struggle came is, we hired third-party consultants who are amazing. They help a lot of people succeed on selling in television or selling their products in stores. And they all told me the same thing. They said, if you want a chance at succeeding, here's what you need to do. You need to go on the air in your 10 minutes, use this type of model. And all the models look like they're 12, and they were all the same skin tone with flawless skin. And I'm like, listen, what if I just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea and show the world how this product works? And what if I put real women of every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge? And I would argue, and I say, because if I'm sitting at home watching, how do I know something's going to work for me if I don't see it on someone who looks like me? To me, it was so common sense, and they were mortified. And here's the thing, they wanted me to win, and they were giving me the best advice they knew how on what they said is the only way people will buy a product from something from they would say these unattainable images of aspiration that no one could possibly look like, but that is what sells product. And I'm like, so it's tough. So I sat in that rental car knowing that everything was on the line, knowing I had one shot. And it's, my gut was telling me one thing, right? And experts were telling me another. And these are the moments that define our lives, is when we learn to hear ourselves, hear our gut, and then make the decision to trust it. And it's not always easy, right? And I sat in that rental car every day for a week, and I just, I prayed, I cried, but I also imagined who that woman was watching on the other end. And I don't know why, but I kept imagining a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was too busy to remember that she mattered and that she was beautiful. And I just kept imagining, if she was going to turn on her television for a few seconds, and I was going to be blessed with a few seconds of her time, it came down to this moment where I realized I'd rather have her see me showing women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it, even if she buys nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so I knew what I had to do, but it didn't mean it was easy. And I remember walking into QVC studios and for that one shot, that 10 minutes. And when we went live, so I remember standing there in the studio, there's this giant countdown clock on the floor that started at the 10-minute mark. I was sweating so much, and I'm not nervous for television, but it was that everything was on the line and I was shaking. I remember like hoping my Spanx caught all my sweat because I was like, I can't be sweating through a dress on national television. I was freaking out. But I remember the clock started and I remember the moment my bare face before shot came up on national television. And I walked over to all the models that I chose as real women, all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all skin tones, all skin challenges. And I remember there was about a minute left in the presentation, and the host says, the tan shade's almost gone, the deep shade's almost sold out. And I was like, and then I remember at the 10-minute mark, the huge sold out sign came up across the screen. I start crying on national television. I remember they cut and then they went to like the next item, which is like Dyson vacuum or Vitamix or Apple iPhone or something. And my husband comes rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like crying. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And this is like such a guy. But that one airing, Angie, turns into 5 that year, 101 the next year. Anyways, for 8 years straight, I did 250 live shows a year on QVC, and we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. It is right now at this very moment. Mm-hmm. But I only share that because it was 3 years of them saying no. Yeah. And so like no one, whoever's listening and needs to hear this today, no one can tell you how big your dream can be. No one can tell you you're not enough. And when people reject you and they literally look you in the eye and tell you they don't think you're going to make it, or you're not the right fit, or you're not this enough or that enough, like those are the moments we don't quit. We don't give up. You know, maybe we cry a little bit, but those are the moments where we listen to our gut and we stay authentic and we keep going. And people who do that are the ones who are able to build something that lasts or that matters or that really, you know, makes a contribution to the world. And I believe every one of us has that inside of us, right? And our life comes down to if we listen to our calling or if we listen to our opposition.
What I'd like to do, Jamie, is I'd like to hear about a couple of them that I would call not headliners, meaning we're going to talk more and I want to hear more about you being rejected. I want you to tell the story about someone being really rude to you and then working for you later on, because I think that's just so much fun. I love that. I want to hear about you getting turned down and then being the dominant product producer on the show that turned you down. I want to hear all that. Your resilience is amazing. But there are some things you did in the early years that are not as public, that were private sacrifices that you made, that Paulo made, that were painful. Could you tell me about one or two of those that don't make the magazine article?
Yeah, so many of those. And thanks for asking about those and also about rejection. I think that the thing that fills my soul talking about this is I just know there's people that are listening or watching this right now that like feel like they're alone in their rejection, you know, because when we're going through it and we are taking a step of faith and putting our idea out there, or we're leading a team, right? This is the thing I find. I've had the blessing of meeting tens of thousands of entrepreneurs now in my journey. And so many people feel like once they are the boss or once they are the leader of the team, they're supposed to hide their self-doubt or they're supposed to like be embarrassed about their failures or their rejections, or it's only them. But especially with entrepreneurs that take that step out there, you know, in a world where everything looks good on social media, a lot of people feel alone when it's not working out behind the scenes, or when it doesn't feel behind the scenes like it looks online everywhere. Right. And, you know, you and I were at an event where Albert Tate talked about this idea of being overexposed and underdeveloped. And I've just been obsessed with that idea recently because I think that this is a really big topic no one's talking about. So many people right now who are entrepreneurs, who are leaders, who are launching their dream, are in this new world where everyone has direct access, direct to consumer, and everyone can be an expert. Everyone can, you know, look like they have a great business. And so many people right now are overexposed, but underdeveloped. And I think that is a big risk. And so, you know, when it comes to the development part, I look at a lot of that as what you're talking about, those early years that a lot of people don't know, those sacrifices that I'm super honored to share because I know someone out there needs to hear it and know that they are not alone, and it is not all glamorous, and it's not just them. And it's, and I believe, Craig, that no matter how hard or unglamorous the situation or how big the setback or how painful the rejection, I believe it is I know it is no indication of your ability to succeed. It's no indication of, is your idea going to work or is your company going to make it? Because the more conversations like this that I have with friends, and I love that we're having this one publicly on your show, and I've had a lot of these privately of people that have built huge companies. It happens to all of us, right? We go through massive setbacks, massive rejection, massive seasons of people saying your idea is not going to work. You don't have what it takes. I don't see you working in our industry. I don't think there'll be a demand for this. And just knowing that it's just so important. And in the early years of building at Cosmetics, I didn't know these things yet. So I spent a lot of nights crying myself to sleep. Early on, we had no money, and no money. And it was like we finally, after all the retailers were saying no, right? Because we'd poured every penny we had into creating a product, and I just thought, if you create a product that's amazing, right? And as long as your product is better than what's out there, and I believed our first product was, it's just going to sell. And I just thought that it would, and it didn't. And I sent it out to all of the big beauty stores, the big department stores, and every single one of them said no. And some of them, it wasn't just like no, it was not no for now. It was like no forever, like no. And so, I eventually thought, let's go direct to consumer. And my husband, we couldn't afford to hire anybody. So my husband built our first website. He bought that book, that big yellow book called HTML for Dummies, and figured out how to build our first website. And I've shared this story with you, but when our website finally went live, I thought it was just going to be this massive success. And the day it went live, we got no orders. And the next day, no orders. And this went on for weeks. And I finally, anyone who works with their partner, this is so easy to do, but I'm like, it's broken. You did it wrong. Like, there's no way that this product is so good. There's no way this website's working. We're just getting no orders for this product. There's no way. And then I remember the day our very first order ever came in, and I was like screaming and running around our office, which was our living room. And he says, that was me. I placed that order to prove to you our website's works. Not broken. Yes. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, and this went on for a long time. And, every penny mattered. Every penny mattered. I remember, really mattered. And so, and it went into our product and into our mission. And we were teetering on this balance of under $1,000 in our bank account for the company and personal combined for a very long time, which meant that if orders didn't keep coming in, like 2 orders a day, 3 orders a day, we'd be out of business. Mm-hmm. And it was this way for a very long time. And I remember seasons where I would go to the ATM and just like, if I needed $20 and I would hit no receipt, because like I couldn't even stomach it, you know what I mean? And it was this constant, are we about to go bankrupt? For a very long time. And it's tough when in those moments, and then one big thing to share, just in case someone needs to hear this today, when we finally got on QVC and had been on for a little while, which is a long story I can share in a minute if you want me to, but all of our money was tied up in working capital at that point. So we still weren't paying ourselves. We still had no money. And I found out this giant competitor who was also on QVC and all the department stores, they loved the product. They saw we were starting to have some success and some momentum, and they were huge. And I learned that they went to our manufacturer and they paid them off to get our formula. And it was so legally we owned it, right? So, but we couldn't afford to sue anyone or do anything. And I went through this devastating season where I learned they're about to launch this exact duplicate of our formula, of our product on QVC and in all the department stores. They were everywhere. And I was just like gutted and literally physically sick to my stomach. Like, everything we have in our life has gone into this for years. And this product is finally getting momentum. And now this huge competitor is going to swoop in. And by the way, their brand positioning, their DNA of their company is totally different than ours. Like our positioning as our company was, was clinically proven products, amazing for your skin, real women. And theirs was totally different. And I was like, this product doesn't authentically fit their brand positioning. They just saw this under the radar company getting momentum and thought they can make it big with our product. And I guess that's what happens everywhere in business. But the lesson in this that I don't think I've ever shared on a show, so I just want to share it because I know so many people are in leadership and business listening to this, or so many people with big ideas or worried about people copying them or whatever. I learned the most powerful lesson of authenticity probably my entire life. And this is when we were very small and had no money. And they did knock us off. And then I found out when it's launching on QVC, and I sat there and I watched their launch, right? And there was nothing we could do. And this is what's tough about being small is you have no money to do anything about anything. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's painful because no one wins when you sue anyways. And it's just like, so I worried though, Craig, that they were going to take us out. I worried that they would get credit for this amazing product because we were so small and they were so big. And they launched it on QVC. They launched it everywhere, and it just did okay. It just did okay. Meanwhile, I kept getting booked to go on QVC and sell the same product, right? People didn't know it was the same. I knew it was the same. It had a different package, but it was the same formula. I was going on, and we're crushing it. Like, numbers are huge and they are bigger than us, and it's just doing okay. And I was sick to my stomach for months over this until I watched this happen before my eyes. And I learned that lesson that you cannot fake authenticity, that nobody, like, customers are smart and you just can't fake authenticity. And this was a product that, even though it was a great one, was incongruent with their positioning. Mm-hmm. And anyhow, it was a big lesson that I learned. And I remember vowing to myself that one day we would be bigger than that company and they wouldn't even think about doing that to us. And then that happened. And we're so, and the little company in my living room is so much larger than they are today. And one funny thing real quick is, I remember watching, there was a message Joel Osteen did on TV where he talked about the boll weevils, and he talked about how the cotton crops and coffee crops and farmers were devastated and boll weevils were eating them. Anyways, we were so poor, but my husband made me these t-shirts, and he drew an S and a J and a J, like a superhero for Super JJ on the front, and then like a little boll weevil on the back. And I literally wore those shirts to and from QVC under my coat just to try and stay focused. Because, Craig, I was in the green room with the competitor that knocked me off and with all the other brands. And I didn't say anything to anybody because it doesn't help. Gossip doesn't help. And right. Being anything other than professional doesn't help. Mm-hmm. And it was like I was at war. I was at war, but I just knew God was on my side. I knew that I would ultimately win. I knew, I just didn't know how, but it was a really tough season. So when you say, what are some of the scrappy things you did in the beginning? For some reason, those t-shirts just came to mind. And I don't think I've ever shared that story before.
Do you believe that your optimism allows this all to work? Because if you are looking at losses as in, well, this was meant to be part of my journey and this scar is actually attractive, because that's how I think about it. I think about all those losses as scars, and like that scar giving you character, and that's attractive. Do you believe that optimism was an incredibly big factor and ingredient in your success?
I think optimism is great. I think, though, that knowing why we're doing what we're doing, listening to our gut and going after our calling, like literally living our calling, I think that's the victory.
Hold on though.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question. Every human needs levels of affirmation along the way to sustain that. Right? Yeah. And so in the beginning where you're not seeing those results, mm-hmm. for many, and you might have, I've always seen results pretty quickly in my good calls. So I always try to think about someone who's not seeing it. So because they don't have optimism, they have delusion, and they think they're going to be, Beyonce when they can't sing, right? Do you feel like believing in your calling gets affirmed along the way? What do you rely on in that beginning? Don't you think blind faith is actually completely grounded in optimism?
I mean, for me, my faith is a huge part of my
I'm sorry.
life.
I'm going to take religion as faith out on
Yeah.
I'm saying I was, I'm just thinking about you, young you in this moment, and I'm really fascinated by it. I'm meant to do this because what you're talking about is what I love, which is the journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to get into your, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't think the victory is the outcome, right? I don't think the victory, listen, I know how accomplished you are and everything. I know you're gonna have the New York Jets one day. I know all that. But I don't think that's the victory. I think the victory is the journey of actually like stepping into all of who you are and not talking yourself out of your own truth. And what I mean by that is this journey of that we're talking about, right? Of course, optimism, of course, resiliency to get back up every time you're knocked down, of course, all those things. But I think that so many people listening right now, if they don't ever learn to get still and hear their own truth and hear their own intuition, I think what's going to happen, and this is what happens to most people, is they end up staying in their comfort zone. They end up putting their own immediate failures on a pedestal or other people's opinions or self-doubt. They end up talking themselves out of their own truth. And then they end up never actually becoming the person they're born to be. So for me, I don't think like the fact that I was able to build $1 billion company is the victory. I think the moments of me knowing this is what I'm supposed to do and trusting it, even when it doesn't make sense. And I'll give you one example, okay, of this. So, and maybe this will make sense because optimism, of course, is important, and I know what you're saying. But I think the biggest thing is learning how to hear yourself and trust yourself. I really believe that. There was a moment
how do you define that as a term? Because I view that as self-belief and confidence and optimism. I think that you're such a, very quickly I'm like, oh, okay, this is my sister. Like literally within the first 3 seconds, I'm like, oh, I see. So I'm trying to do, and I apologize because I'm hoping a different voice might do this for the listener. I'm trying to figure out what words you use to quantify. I fully agree with you, everything you're saying. I'm wondering if you view optimism as, so I think optimism, similar to what we were talking about earlier, sometimes gets pegged as delusion.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about, you see where I'm going? Because I could almost feel you doing that right now. And I'm like, I get you, sister. Because like this isn't why it's so great. Wordsmithing matters, right? Like, for example, hustle has gotten demonized as like burnout. So I no longer use it because I don't need it. You know what I'm going to call it? Work ethic. Call it what you want. Here's what I can tell you. For all the belief you had and all the love you had in doing what you were doing, I'm pretty confident based on your outcome that there was a lot of work ethic there. And so whatever you want to call it, and sometimes I just think about, I know the word hustle triggers people. So I use the word work ethic now because I don't want to ever not let anybody who cares to listen to me not realize that if you don't put in the work, it is impossible. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just had a big aha moment that what you're saying is optimism. I 1,000,000,000% agree with. And I'm thinking of that right now as belief. Same thing. Yep. And now I'm right there with you. Like, here's the thing and then I want to share one quick story with you too, that hopefully someone listening right now maybe needs to hear. But I mean, when I look back, it's like when people are like, oh, how did you start with close to nothing and build $1 billion company? It's like, yeah, I got back up every time I got knocked down and I followed my gut and I worked really, really hard. But I do think that one of the most important things I did was just like how to build $1 billion company from nothing. Like, I think one of the most important things is making that decision to believe that you can.
Yes.
And for me, that's optimism, exactly what you're saying. And I guess I call it belief. So yeah, 1,000,000% with that. And one more thing, just on maybe people listening to us right now that are like, oh, Gary, like Jamie, I trust my gut sometimes and it's wrong, or I tried it once and it didn't work, or I don't know how to hear my own intuition. I just want to say, I think that it is a muscle that we can all build. And I think people have to give themselves grace, right? It reminds me of like when you start to meditate, a lot of people try it and they can't do it. They're like, they go through their to-do list in their head the whole time they're trying to meditate, but you have to like give yourself grace and start. And what I would say, whether it's entrepreneurs or someone who's 14 years old and out there dating right now, I would say when you start to look back at your experiences and think about moments when you had a gut feeling and you didn't follow it. Like we've all dated like a sketchy guy or or had a, and like, you're like, his phone didn't really just like shut off for 3 days, or he didn't lose the phone. He went
Right.
like, and then you kind of make that decision of like, okay.
Talk to me about, I mean, we are really vibing here. I actually want to talk to you offline because I just have had the thought. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm so excited.
Okay.
Insecurity.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, to me, like thinking to my friends that were girls that were dating guys that I knew what the guys were doing, which was they were preying on my friends' insecurities, and sometimes brilliant, beautiful girls. And I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
This woman, you really triggered something in me. This woman, I'm thinking about 4 or 5 friends through the last 20 years. This woman is subjectively, and if we had 100 people ask, is a million miles better than this man. This man has figured out the cheat code that if he makes her feel insecure, he has the leverage. Thoughts?
Yep. I think that happens every single day. And I think that we look for people that treat us how we believe we deserve to be treated. Like we find partners that meet it.
So you go with, cool, before you worry about jerk off Johnny, this is a big game of your own lack of self-love towards you.
It's your own lack of self-love, because here's the thing, and I don't know your friends, so I'll just say this. I'll make a general statement.
You'll appreciate this. This was mainly 17 to 25 years old, because you see that so commonly there. I mean, in later stages, people are in really deep relationships and you're in different parts of your life. When you're going through high school and college, you're spending so much time with people, you get better reads to the cleanness of the data is like, oh, this is really fucked up. When you're older, you're running in different circles, you don't really get to see it as easily.
Right. And I think that whether, no matter your age, this is what I believe. I think that when someone's treating us like crap and we stay with them, I think it's because we deep down inside don't believe we deserve better yet. And here's the thing, for people like that are dating your friend who's totally screwing them over, right? If you were to bring the best, most amazing, beautifully like kind person into their space, that same girl would probably put them in the friend zone.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because they don't yet
deep
down inside believe. Yeah, they deserve more.
And also people value different things through their life. One of the things, right now we live through a generation desperately interested in blaming social media for lack of accountability. They're just pointing fingers, right? Like if you are in a good place with yourself and your perspective is strong around gratitude, an anonymous person's negative comment is not going to ruin your day.
Yeah. And I think when it does, I think that's what's so tough, right? That's when it's a reminder to ourselves, like, oh yeah, we have some more work to do. One of the things I talk about in my book, Believe It, is just that ability to learn to turn down the volume on certain things and turn up the volume on other things. Like one example, we were 3 years into building the company, right? I was hearing no from everyone, Gary, like from all the retailers I dreamed of carrying our products that I used to shop in, right? I would save my tip money, like I mentioned, as a Denny's waitress, and buy products in the department stores or in
what year was this?
So we launched 2007. Like I quit my job 2007. I wrote the business plan on my honeymoon flight to South Africa with my husband. Not the most romantic way to kick off a marriage. And we both got back, quit our jobs, dove all in. I thought, Gary, and maybe so many entrepreneurs listening, I thought, oh, if I just pour everything I have and actually create a product that works, like it's just going to sell. If it's that good, it's just going to sell. And then I didn't realize it would be the hard. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs in my life, but being an entrepreneur is by far.
Well, you especially also built that brand different than building a brand today where you can use Shopify and social media to build it. You had to get a yes from Sephora, Ulta, Walmart, Walgreens, and Macy, whoever it was. And that is difficult when you're innovating the way you did. Do you know that my whole life is no? Do you know VaynerMedia? A lot of people listening don't know this. Most brands don't want to say yes to VaynerMedia. We don't want to do a commercial and then go to sleep. Like we don't want to take 12 weeks to do the perfect commercial and then do print ads that look like it, or banner ads, or digital programmatic. My whole life building VaynerMedia is no. everything I do as Gary Vee's easy. I just do it with the audience. But VaynerMedia is exactly, I know what you're living through, because when you innovate and you're doing something different and you don't look the part, you didn't work at Procter & Gamble for 13 years.
Yeah.
They're like, what's this Washington State thing? Like, you know what it is.
Well, and it's wild because I would go in and start, I would pitch the product, and, we were staying alive on social media. So we were getting, people were writing just blogs at that point, and we were selling like 1 to 3 orders a day on our website, and people were spreading the word. That was the only way we barely stayed alive. But all the retailers, exactly what you said. And by the way, I've learned this, like when you're doing something that's authentic or that is different, but even if it's just authentic to you, even in a crowded industry, by definition, it's novel. By definition, it's never been done before. And I really believe, looking back now at this journey and everything, I believe that like even a lot of visionaries, touted visionaries, I think they can't imagine anything being successful unless subconsciously they have proof in the back that they've already seen it and it's already worked. So it's like, of course, so many people are going to say no to your dream or doubt your dream if they've never seen it done before. And we had 3 years of every single beauty retailer saying, no, you're not the right fit. It's not going to work. You're not right for our customers. And and by the way, we talk about gut feeling. I kept having this gut feeling we're supposed to go on QVC, because then I could actually like show my bright red rosacea and prove live that our product works, unlike the Photoshopped ads on TV. And this is just something to share for someone who might need to hear this right now, who's having a gut feeling, but they feel like they're wrong. Like I kept having this feeling, and every time I would do a meeting with QVC, it would be a no. Every phone call, I'd finally get, like I got their head guy, Alan Burke, on the phone. He's like a legend. He's responsible for building this $1 billion beauty empire on QVC. And I finally got him on a call, and I thought for sure it was going to be a yes. And because if he's taking his precious time, and it was about a minute into the call, and he said, I just need to let you know, we've reviewed your product with all the buyers. It's unanimous. It's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC. And of course, I like poured my heart out. I'm like, oh, but I am the right fit. And then we were down to under $1,000 in our bank account at that point. So I remember like crying myself to sleep. And long story short, a year later, when I finally did get a yes to go on QVC, I took this big risk that I was advised not to by consultants, and I put real women of all shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges, and I showed my own bare face and all the things that had never been done before. We sold out at the 10-minute mark. I was crying on national television because it's live. QVC is live to 100 million homes.
You knew the truth, and your heart would win, not students telling you what to do.
Yeah, and listen, it was a big risk, but I feel like I know this lesson, that like I know this, and now I've seen it play out with thousands of entrepreneurs over the years. But I know that authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees failure.
Love that.
Right?
Love that.
So you guys, I just want to share something. Anybody out there feeling like, oh, do I belong? And do I have will I be embraced by this industry I'm in? We all have the same thoughts. And this is going to be a bold statement.
Get them.
What I realized, I could have never sold my company for over $1 billion had I not been odd. Had I ever listened to all the feedback along the way from really well-intentioned experts and retailers about how to conform, about how my packaging needs to be, about how to fit in this beauty space, about what I need to change or alter or create to fit into what's going to sell. Had I ever listened to that when it didn't feel authentic to who I was, it never would have happened. And here's what I mean by that. And I just want to share this for anyone who needs this today, because this is so, so, so powerful. Because if you are doing something authentically to you, by definition, no one else out there can do it the way you do it, right? So by definition, it's novel. It's never been done before. And listen, I went to a beauty space. There's millions of beauty companies, but I stayed authentic and did it a different way. Was told I was odd. Was told your idea is not going to work. And you guys, I started in my living room, and it was 3 years of having this product that I believed in so strongly, that worked for me, but I didn't want to have crazy fancy expensive packaging. because I always felt like, as a consumer, for me, if I bought something that was so fancy, like it was really pretty, I would put it on my counter and I would look at it, but I wouldn't use it. I wanted
Not
people
use it.
to, exactly, I
Yes,
wanted people to
yes.
not be afraid and to use it. And so I was told over and over by a lot of retailers, your packaging is not expensive or fancy enough. And then when I wanted to use real women and people as models, I was told women won't buy makeup unless there's such this aspirational thing of beauty that they can never look like. That's what will sell. And I'm like, that doesn't, like, maybe, just maybe, women are sick and tired of seeing people who don't look like them modeling a product, because how are they going to know it works for them if they don't see somebody that has, anyways. So I would keep going in and I kept getting told,
true.
right? You're not the right fit.
Well, you're bringing your values into your work, which is so
Yeah.
key. You're bringing your values into work. You're like, I want to have, models for It Cosmetic who look like regular humans, not like the traditional, wave model. We wanted to have people who, were just joyous and happy and not like, you really wanted, like, you had people with, I remember looking back at some of your stuff that you did, and it was like, oh, these people have regular human facial expressions. You ever open those magazines and you look at everyone's facial expressions, you're like, that's not even anyway. So
and it's so really Photoshopped. But I used to say to them, like, I'm creating a company that authentically believes every person is beautiful. So why wouldn't I show every person as the models, right? And it was this just constant pushback. And by the way, sometimes it's little things. I remember, I love some good sweats. Like, I'm wearing sweats today. I love some good sweats, and I'll be fancy every once in a while. But in the start, for those of you that haven't heard the story, I sold the company I started in my living room to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. And it was 3 years of meetings with them. And the first time I ever walked into their office, I felt so odd, so out of place. Like, everyone dresses so well. and I was just like, okay, but here's the thing. I didn't change who I was. And I didn't start dressing like everyone at that company. And I didn't, right? And what happened, my whole point in all this, you guys, is, by the time L'Oreal bought our company for $1.2 billion, this was after years of meetings, they have the most beautiful portfolio of like 40 companies, 40 different beauty brands. And none of them were doing what we're doing. Like, they're all doing their own thing really beautifully, because I stuck to being odd and I didn't conform. Every time I thought, oh, well, if I do this, then that retailer will carry our products, or if I change our packaging, then we'll be accepted. Like, had I changed everything, they would have never bought our company, because we would have been doing what everyone else is doing. And instead, because we were odd, we brought value to their portfolio. We didn't compete with anyone else in their portfolio. We were odd. We brought a whole new value and a whole new customer base. And
let me give another word for this too, Jamie, because this is like, I really want to, because I want to transfer this from, odd or even authentic, which can be, kind of like, sometimes I know someone watching might think, well, that's like pop self-help, here they are just being positive about this. Let me share, like, with some hard truth what that means. Being odd means you bring what is important to you into your day every day. You bring what is important to you into your work. Because what is important to you, that's your values, that's your inclination, that's your vision, that's your unique spirit or voice or inner speaking to, I want to do this, and I want to do it in this unique way that's my way. And when you honor that and you show up and you do that over and over and over, your quote unquote brand, whether that, or who you are, or how you live as a mom, as a team, as a leader, what happens and what manifests is this unique identity that's truly you, because you are living the things that are important to you, and you're bringing what's important to you into every day. And so for those of you who aren't on this track to build $1 billion company, or you're like, oh, I'm not like Brendan, I don't do that stuff, on the internets. Here's what I'm saying. Bring what is important to you into the world every day. And that oddness, that uniqueness, that will manifest itself into what you feel is living a life of personal freedom, doing what is important to you and beautiful to you. And that's where you find fulfillment. Because I always say, fake does not equal fulfillment.
Mhm.
You can't fake it into fulfillment. You can fake it and get things done. You can fake it and stand out for a minute,
Mhm.
but over the long term, you'll be miserable because you didn't bring what's important and true to you into your life.
Yeah.
And so what Jamie had her ultimate success, just knowing her now as a friend and doing this Growth Day morning show together. And we have so much conversation together pretty much on the daily now. It's like she brought what is important to her into her space. She had rosacea. She said, I'm going to solve this rosacea thing. I need that's important to me. She solved her rosacea challenge by concocting cosmetics that are in her house. And that became literally $1 billion empire, y'all. So you just have to go, what's important to me? Let's work on that. Let's solve problems that are important to me. Let's express myself in ways that are true to me. And if you do that year over year over year over year, that's how you build something real.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word unique, because that's such a great word too, right? Versus odd. I'm like, we were odd, but unique. The things unique.
I'm from Montana. I say weird. I'm weird, right?
You're weird. But and my big thing is, yes, live those, like you said. Yes, bring them into what you're doing, but also don't be scared of them when someone else doesn't get it. Like, don't change your uniqueness or your weirdness or your oddities when they're true to you and to your values, just because someone else doesn't get it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most important thing, even though, like, I'll probably talk about this for another 100 years, but rejection sucks and rejection is painful. And it never got, it maybe got a little easier because I've gone through hearing no probably thousands of times in the journey, but it's never fun. But had I ever listened to that you're not enough feedback when it was something that was an authentic, unique oddity of a value I believed in, had I ever changed that, we would have never, ever had the outcome that we did. And it was just such a real life, full circle, good learning that, oh, wow, it was our oddities, our uniqueness, all of that about our company that we stayed true to that ended up really building something of value.
80% of women, 73% of men experience a lot of serious self-doubt and a lot of limiting beliefs. You talked about, obviously, one of your biggest, it seems like one of your biggest issues was rejection, this fear of rejection. Would you walk us through sort of your experience with what some of your biggest limiting beliefs were and how you overcame those?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would love to do this with you if you are great with it, with everyone listening and part of this show with us right now. Because the fear of rejection and the fear of failure is one of the biggest reasons we stay stuck. And I would love to share kind of a tool, like a real practical framework that we can do in our lives right now to kind of take a step forward in overcoming this. Because I truly believe, and by the way, when I wrote this book, Worthy, it's really because my biggest journey in life has been, how do I believe I'm worthy of my hopes and dreams? And in life, what I know to be true is we can have all the success in the world. We can build all the things and all of that. And those things build confidence, but none of them build self-worth. And we'll never be able to enjoy those things if we don't absolutely feel worthy underneath all of it. Also, for most of us, if we don't have strong self-worth underneath it all, we'll sabotage them along the way, or we'll hit a ceiling in our business or our ideas. And the worst of it too, when we struggle with self-worth, which is the one thing that changes everything in our life when we build it, is that when rejections or failures happen to us, we can all of a sudden, especially when we've had them in the past, we start to take them on not just as a rejection or failure that hurts our confidence, which is largely based external, but we start to think we're a rejection or we're a failure. We're rejected or we're a failure. We take it on at an identity level, and that's when it hurts our self-worth. That's when so many of us stay stuck and don't go for things. And so, step one is, there's a whole chapter that almost was its own book. It was going to be its own book, but I didn't want to wait 2 more years. And so it's inside Worthy as a chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And so here's what I would love to take everyone through. There's a framework called the 4 R's. And this has been life changing for me. It's been company changing, relationship changing, all of it. When you think about how, as human beings, we're all wired to avoid pain at all costs.
Yep.
And I know so many people, even though they know if I go to the gym, I'll be healthy and I'll have all of these pleasurable rewards, but I just hate working out. And so many people will want to avoid the pain of working out, even though they know the payoff. Like, we're just wired to want to avoid pain. And so for most of us, when we think of getting rejected or failing at something, we associate so much pain with it that it keeps us stuck. And so just to do this kind of in real time with everybody, because this is something you can apply to your life right now, that is just, so powerful. So right now, just ask yourself this question. We're going to go through the 4 R's, and this is the first R, called reveal. So right now, ask yourself this question and really be honest with yourself. Think about, a time when you have failed or been rejected. Maybe there's many times, but what is the first thought that goes through your head when you get rejected or you failed at something? And a lot of times we're not even aware of this first thought. We just have it, right? But if you're listening to me and Josh right now, think about this. What is the very first thought you have? And be really honest with yourself when you get rejected or you fail at something. Josh, what is it for you?
I think that I could do, well, it depends on the person probably. One, it could be, I'm not smart enough or I'm not good enough. And the other could be, well, it could be actually pushed back at the other person of, well, that person, doesn't know what they're talking about sort of idea, or that person's not smart or wise. And so it's probably could go 2 ways.
2 ways. So, it's so good. For me, most of my whole life, mine was always like, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. Yep, proof again, I'm not enough would be the first thought I'd have. And for a lot of people, like I've asked, various groups this question, and I've had a whole room of CEOs in tears because a lot of people aren't aware, but for a lot of people, the first thought they have is something like, I'm a loser. Why'd I even try? I knew, who do I think I am going for this? Not smart enough. The one you brought up is a big one. So what thought that you just had, for everyone listening, right? For Josh, it was either, oh yeah, I'm not smart enough, or, oh, they're not smart enough, they're wrong. For me, it was like, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. Whatever it was for you listening right now, that first thought you have, that is your current definition of rejection and failure. So that is the meaning that you attach to rejection or failure, often without even realizing it. And for so many of us, that meaning is so painful that we want to avoid it at all costs. So we stay stuck. We don't go for the thing. We're running a great business, but we don't put our wild idea out there that just might move the needle, right? Because we want to avoid the potential of rejection or failure because of the meaning we attach to it. And so most of my life, it was always like, oh, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. I'm not enough every single time. And what happened is, as I was building at Cosmetics, going through hundreds of rejections, there was one rejection one day. I just had this dream and vision we should be on QVC. When God tells you something and you feel it, but like no one else seems to agree and you don't know why. Right. And like we eventually built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. But for 3 years, they said no. And not only no, but you are not the right fit for us or our customers. I mean, there was one no in particular was so painful because we were so close to bankruptcy. And so I'll never forget this no. And I just crawled under my covers. I started Googling every person I admired most who has built incredible things in business and who has moved the world forward, who's helped heal humanity through love, who's, shifted culture. And I started reading about all their stories, and every single one of them has gone through countless rejections and failures on their journey. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyways. And so that day I wrote down, rejection does not mean I am not enough. Rejection means this is a victory because I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. Like, I'm not going to just live my life on the sidelines and then deal with all this regret of never trying. Like, I'm going to decide right now. And here's the thing, you have to believe this to be true in your soul, but I decided right then, okay, every time I get rejected, I know my first instinct is going to be that old definition. Oh, I'm not enough. I'm going to intercept it. I'm going to replace it with that new definition. This is the second R, called redefine. And from now on, when I get rejected, I'm going to say, this is a victory. I mean, I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. And of course, I have to intentionally believe that for it to feel true. But over time, it does. Another big new definition of rejection that I started adding to my toolbox. And this is how I got through hundreds of rejections and eventually built $1 billion business. And another one was rejection's God's protection. And I would look back at past rejections and be like, oh, now I see how. It didn't make sense at the time, but it was God's protection. And I remember one moment, Josh, there was, we were down to no money. I didn't know how we were going to make it. And a potential private equity company, a potential investor, had gotten hold of our product. And they're really well known, and they've turned a ton of small companies in pre-revenue into big businesses we all shop for in grocery stores and big box retailers. And I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, then A, we're not going to go bankrupt, and B, what if they use their leverage to get us into all these stores that keep telling me no? And I was so excited. And we went through meeting after meeting after meeting. And we started the diligence phase where we brought on lawyers. It was a whole thing. We got to the final meeting, and my husband and I flew up for this meeting and presented the whole future product pipeline. And at the very end of the meeting, the team was awesome. I knew they were really for me. And then the head guy says, congratulations. He was standing about 3 feet from me, by the way. And he says, congratulations. You should be so proud. This is a really great product. You should be really proud of it. But it's going to be a no. We're going to pass on investing in cosmetics. At this point, I gotten so many no's. And I said to him, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he just got really quiet. And then he says to me, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I was like, yes, please. And then he paused for the longest time. And I remember the moment his mouth started moving, and he says to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said those words, I actually never felt any anger toward him, but it was like a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt, flooded my body. So I felt like I was staring my own fear, straight in the eye. But when he said those words, I'll never forget this. I got this feeling deep down in my stomach. I can feel it like it was yesterday, that literally said, he's wrong. He's wrong. And I didn't know how to prove it, but I got that feeling, that knowing, which is when I pray, that is how I hear God, that still small voice. And when he said those words, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I got that feeling that the city's wrong. When I look back at that moment, what I know happened is that he gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing. And I believe every one of us, our intuition is stronger than anyone else's advice. And I believe so much of our life will come down to which one we listen to, the no or the knowing. And so many of our most painful rejections can come from other people, like this one did. But most of our most painful rejections can come from ourselves and the things we're telling ourselves. And being able to tune into what is the truth and what isn't, and how are we going to define or redefine rejection. And so in that moment, when and by the way, every one of us deals with rejection in different ways every single day. And when he said those words to me, I just remember making the decision. And by the way, I went out in my car and I cried. But I made the decision, rejection is God's protection. And I don't know how it's God's protection right now, but I'm going to believe it. And that was one of my favorite go-to definitions. And then 6 years later, I hadn't heard from him in 6 years. 6 years later, the day that L'Oreal acquired our company, they're a public company. And so I learned the night before they were going to disclose the purchase price. And so it was everywhere. The homepage of the Wall Street Journal, it was everywhere that L'Oreal paid $1.2 billion cash and made me the first woman to hold a CEO title of a brand in their 100-year history. It was everywhere. And it was the first time I heard from him in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And I don't know, Josh, if you ever saw that movie, Pretty Woman, like where
years
Julia
ago.
goes in the store, they won't help her. And then she like goes in a couple of days later. So what I wanted to say to him was, big mistake, huge. But I didn't. I kept it classy. But here's what I knew is that had he believed in me at the time, I was so desperate, I would have given him the majority of the company for probably nothing. I didn't know how we were going to stay alive. Because he didn't believe in me when we sold to L'Oreal, we were still the largest shareholders. And I was like, rejection is God's protection. And so it's one definition, but I just want to encourage everyone at home to write out new definitions of rejection that you know and you know to be true, that you're going to replace that old thought every time it comes up so that you build resiliency. You don't let rejection or failure take root and make you even for a second think you're rejected or you're a failure. And you just start building that resiliency. And the third R, really, I'll try to go fast through these. The third R is to revisit. And this, I think, is the most powerful one. And it's taking that ability to redefine rejection, but revisiting past rejections and failures. For so many men, for so many women, we have had past people hurt us, reject us. We have made our own mistakes. We have failed so many times, and we let those labels and those limiting beliefs take root and it's almost like we're trying to fly carrying these lead balloons of labels we've put on ourselves from our past. And we can easily start to believe our past can determine our future. And it doesn't have to. And I love to revisit past rejections and then redefine those so that I'm not carrying the weight of them anymore, so that I change the story I tell myself about what they were. Two quick examples is, I was adopted. And for so much of my life, I kind of thought I'm rejected or I'm abandoned. And I kind of had that story for a long time. And I made this decision to actually apply this tool in my personal life that way. And I decided, oh my gosh, my birth mom and birth dad were together one time ever. Like God chose me to come into this world. And then my birth mom, her life would have been way easier if she did not have me, but she chose to deliver me. And my adopted parents chose to raise me. And I changed that limiting belief and that definition I gave to rejection that used to be like abandoned, rejected, unwanted. And I replaced it with like, oh, I'm chosen. And I believe that. And it's shifted how I live my life. And the last quick one I'll share is my favorite in case someone needs to hear it today. I never talk this much. I'm just so excited.
I love it. Hey, I love it. Learning a lot. So good.
Well, my last one that I just feel in my spirit is for someone today is when you revisit past rejections, people that have betrayed you or pulled the rug out from underneath you or did not see your value or didn't love you the way you needed to be loved, or even current things that happen, like maybe the job you apply for, you want it so bad and you don't get it, or the friend that betrayed your trust, the person that broke your heart. When those kind of rejections happen, I go deep into how to do this in a real tactical way in the book Worthy. But when they happen to you, this is my favorite one to revisit. My favorite definition is I will literally, Josh, I'll imagine God saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I'll believe that. And it's how, to this day, if all of a sudden I'm not invited to a party or included in something or whatever, we all face these various forms of rejection or someone just not liking us no matter how hard we try. And maybe it's an in-law, maybe it's whatever, these various forms we all face of rejection. We put our art out in the world and it gets no likes on social, whatever it is, like whatever we're going through. I just have that divine trust where I believe like, oh, okay, God is saying to me, no, you're not rejected. I'm hiding your value from them because they are not assigned to your destiny. And I just think that it's one of the most powerful things we can do because, and the fourth R, by the way, is to revel in the fact that you have become fearless when it comes to rejection and failure. And I can just sit here and share with you that, I made so many mistakes building at cosmetics. And, I believe in the power of being a lifelong student. And every day I'm making mistakes and all of that. But one of the things that I know how to do really well, like I am fearless when it comes to rejection or failure. Like it does not faze me at all. And it's because I've learned to change my relationship with it and the meaning I give it, and to new meanings I really believe. And it's literally one of the keys on how I turned an idea in my living room into $1 billion business. It's one of the keys on how, I poured my heart and soul into Worthy, and I'm putting it out there in the world. Like I believe it's for a reason bigger than myself. So yeah, when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life.
You're not crazy. You're just first. All right, I want you to hear me out on this because this is a life-changing concept and it's also true. So you might be thinking, what do you mean I'm first? I'm not the first to do anything. My ideas, someone's already done them, that kind of thing. I bet someone's done them better than I have. All right, I want you to just take this in for a minute, because when you embrace your firstness, it not only helps build really, really strong self-worth, but it can change how bravely you show up in the world as who you truly are. It can change your perspective on whether or not you feel like you belong or not, whether or not you feel like people get you. Literally, it can help you realize that the things that you thought maybe were odd or quirky or off about you are actually almost always the things that are most right with you. So this idea, you're not crazy, you're just first. So hear me out. And I go into this really deep into how to embrace this fully in Worthy. There's a whole chapter and a poem called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. Here's the thing. There is only one of you in the entire universe. There's never been another you before. There'll never be another you again. And if you're saying, well, what's the big deal? Just think about this for a minute. You are the only one in existence with your fingerprints, right? You're the only one in existence with your tongue print. Yep, we all have a unique tongue print. You're the only one in existence with the iris of your eyes. You actually have a unique heartbeat that no one else in the world has, right? And think about this. You're the only one that has the set of experiences you've had in life. You're the only one to feel the emotions that you feel at any moment, exactly the way you feel them. You're the only one that sees art and beauty and ups and downs and highs and lows the way that you do. You, if you are one of the brave ones willing to actually show up in this world as who you authentically are, you're first. If you're one of the, now if you show up as your representative or try to be like someone else, etc., but if you're one of the brave ones, showing up as who you fully, authentically are, you are first. And when you are first, do not be surprised if not everyone gets it. Don't be surprised if you might walk into a few rooms and feel like you don't quite belong. Don't be surprised if you feel like someone just doesn't get you or you don't fit in. You're first. There's never been another you before. And there'll never will be another you like you. This concept is huge because so many of us feel like, oh, I've got to change who I am to fit in. Or, people have been calling me odd or quirky or off or different or strange, right? Or crazy. You're not crazy. You're just first. You're just first. And here's the thing, when it comes to your ideas, your goals, your dreams, your art that you want to put out there in the world, your business that you launched or that you are in the process of launching, right? Don't be surprised if not everyone gets it at first. Because if you are listen, I don't care how many people out there have done the idea before you. If you're doing it authentically to you, no one's ever done it, right? Like when I built It Cosmetics, there was thousands of makeup companies doing thousands of foundations and concealers, but no one had done it the way I was going to do it, authentically to me. So by definition, that excuse of like, oh, someone's done my idea or something, It's impossible. If you bring who you authentically are to that idea, to that business, to that piece of art, to that expression, to that offering to the world, you're first. No one else has done it quite like you. So when it comes to your business or your ideas or your art, if you're putting it out there and you feel like it's not getting traction or you're not sure why, or maybe you're showing it to like experts and touted visionaries and you're wondering why they don't think it's going to succeed, here's why. I'll tell you why. Because when I built It Cosmetics, I was doing it so differently. Almost everybody told me it's not going to work. Like so many of the experts I put on pedestals said it's not going to work. And listen, they wanted the best for me. But even touted visionaries, even experts, subconsciously, they're not going to believe something's going to work if they've never seen it work before. If there's no social proof it's going to work. So if you're doing something that is authentic to you, they've never seen it work before because it's never been done. So it is, if I had learned this lesson, by the way, y'all, I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. Like thinking like, why does everyone not think this idea is going to work, right? Many of us know the outcome. 8 years later, 100 weeks later, It Cosmetics grew to $1 billion business. But for many years, because I was doing it authentic to me, it wasn't working in the beginning. People didn't quite get it in the beginning. And a lot of experts said it would never, ever work. And so I want you to really take this to heart, okay? That when you are doing something authentic to who you are, it has never been done before. It has never been done before. And so you got to get really, really good at cheering yourself on, at believing in the offering you're putting out there into the world, whether it's in the form of just showing up as who you are and all that you are, whether it's in the form of a business or creation or ideas or art. You have to get really, really good at cheering yourself on, because what I have learned is most people will cheer you on after you make it. After the thing catches on, after people start embracing it. So in that journey, I want you to remember this. If you're doing something that you feel like others are like, I don't get it, doesn't quite fit in, you don't quite belong, right? You're different or odd or strange or crazy. You're not crazy. You're just first. And I just want to share one more thing. And again, there's a whole chapter in Worthy called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. And we go deep into how to really look at your identity and build your self-worth around this. Because for so many of us, feeling like we are not enough and don't belong can take root at an identity level. I remember growing up, I have 5 families, I was adopted, it's a whole story. But I remember so many of my loving, well-intentioned family members would say things to me like, you're so odd or strange or crazy. I would have these big ideas on how to impact the world or, solve global problems. And I didn't even know what I was talking about at that point in my life, but I just had these big, dreams and ideas and thoughts. And they would literally, so many of them would always say like, you're crazy. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you're crazy, all that. And I remember there was this moment in my life when in my 20s, I had gone to therapy for the first time ever. And I literally asked my therapist, I'm like, I feel like, I don't fit in and sometimes I don't belong in the room and this and that. And I have these ideas. And she explained to me that when you are somebody who, especially is the first in your family, or first in your peer group, or first amongst the people you spend time around, or first amongst the people you were raised around, to have, to think differently, to actually be willing to show up as who you authentically are. Like, don't be surprised if you don't feel like you fit in because you're first. You're the first to truly, have the confidence and the self-worth to show up as all of who you are. And I just remember this moment that hit me like a light bulb, so powerful, the light bulb burst when I realized, oh, I'm not crazy, I'm just first. So I just want to share this with you today, in case these words are for you. You're not crazy, you're just first. You're not odd, you're just first. There's nothing wrong with you. In fact, the things you think are most odd or quirky or wrong with you are actually so often the things that are most right with you. The things that are most right with you. And when you're one of the brave ones who is willing to show up in this world as who you authentically are, you are first. So be the first, best, most quirky, odd, fully embracing, talented, gifted, like full expression, best ever, only you who are first.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.